The desert world of Vela was hot, dry, and filled with broken dreams. Ships came and left every day, carrying traders, smugglers, and wanderers. But on the edge of the spaceport, in a forgotten corner, there stood a small workshop. It was a place filled with scrap, wires, and the smell of burning metal. This was the shop of a human mechanic named Joran. Joran was not rich, not powerful, not special. He was just a man who knew how to fix things that others had already thrown away. Old engines, cracked droids, failing generators, he could bring them back to life. But few respected him. To many aliens, he was just a human, one of the weaker races of the galaxy. But to Joran, work was work, and helping those who came to his shop gave him peace. One evening, just as the twin suns were sinking behind the dunes, the workshop door creaked open. Joran looked up from his table and saw something strange. A small alien girl, no older than 10 human years, stood there. Her skin glowed faint blue, and her eyes were large and shining like stars. Her tiny hands clutched the arm of a broken android. The machine's chest was cracked, wires dangling, its eyes dark and lifeless. The girl struggled to pull it inside, her small feet sliding on the dusty floor. She looked weak, frightened, but determined. "Please," she whispered in a trembling voice, "can you fix my friend?" Joran put down his tools and frowned. The android was heavy, and it looked badly damaged. Repairs like this would cost more than a child could ever pay. Still, the mechanic walked over and helped her drag the broken machine onto the table. "What happened to it?" Joran asked, his voice calm but curious. The girl shook her head. "He protected me," she said softly. "But now he is hurt." Her words were simple, but Joran felt the weight behind them. He glanced at her clothes, ragged, dusty, not the dress of someone wealthy. This child had nothing, except the broken android she called her friend. "You have any money?" Joran asked carefully. The girl lowered her eyes, ashamed. I can't pay," she admitted. "But please." "He is all I have." For a moment, silence filled the shop. Joran could say no. He could send her away. No one would blame him. But something in the child's eyes stopped him. It was not just sadness. It was hope, fragile but bright. Joran sighed and rolled up his sleeves. "All right," he said. "Let's see what I can do." The girl's eyes lit up with gratitude, and she bowed her head quickly. Thank you," she whispered. Joran didn't answer. He had already turned his attention to the android. Hours passed as the mechanic worked. Sparks flew, wires were replaced, and panels were tightened. The girl sat quietly nearby, watching with wide eyes. She said nothing, but her gaze never left her broken companion. The room grew darker as night fell. Only the glow of Joran's tools lit the shop. Finally, after long effort, Joran closed the panel and wiped the sweat from his brow. "Try now," he muttered, pressing the power switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the android's eyes flickered. A dim light spread across its faceplate. The girl gasped and ran forward, grabbing its hand. "You're back!" she cried with joy. The android's voice cracked and weakly replied, "Little one." Safe. But then, something strange happened. Its chest glowed faintly, and hidden circuits lit up in patterns Joran had never seen. Symbols, alien runes, codes of great complexity. Joran stepped back, confused. "What in the stars?" he whispered. The android's voice changed, deeper now. Not just a machine, but something greater. It whispered a sequence of numbers and words that Joran didn't understand. But the little girl froze, eyes wide with fear. She grabbed Joran's sleeve and shook her head quickly. "Please, don't tell anyone," she begged. "It must stay secret." Joran narrowed his eyes. This was no normal android, and this little girl was no ordinary child. Far above the planet, in orbit, a massive ship floated silently. Inside sat a tall woman with a crown of burning silver light. Her eyes glowed with the same star-like shine as the girl's. She watched the workshop through a hidden drone. Her lips curved in a faint smile. So, the Galactic Empress whispered to herself. The human chose kindness, even with no reward. The girl below hugged her android tightly. Joran looked at her, suspicion and worry growing. He had no idea that every move was being watched by the most powerful woman in the galaxy. And he had no idea how deeply his simple act of kindness was about to change his life forever. The night was silent on the desert planet of Vela. But inside Joran's small workshop, silence felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. The little alien girl still held her android's hand. The machine's glowing chest pulsed faintly, strange. Symbols moving across its surface like living fire. Joran had seen many machines in his life, but never anything like this. What are those symbols? He asked carefully. His voice was low, almost whispering. The girl shook her head, her big, shining eyes filled with worry. You must not tell anyone, she repeated, her voice trembling. If people know, they will come, and they will hurt him. They will hurt me. Joran leaned back, crossing his arms. He was a mechanic, not a soldier, not a hero. But he could feel the weight of danger in her words. This was more than just a broken android. Something powerful was hidden inside it. The android's voice suddenly came alive again, deeper, layered, like two voices speaking at once. Coordinates set, Guardian protocol active, protect the air. The girl gasped and quickly touched the machines. Chest, stop, please stop, she whispered, as if afraid the walls themselves might hear. The android's light dimmed slowly, returning to silence. Joran frowned, confused. Guardian protocol? Air? What is this? He asked. The girl looked away, biting her lip. For a moment she did not answer. Then, with a heavy breath, she spoke. My name is Lyra, she said softly. And I am not just any girl. Joran studied her face, her glowing blue skin, her star-like eyes, her strange energy. Pieces started fitting together in his mind. You're important, he muttered. More important than you want me to know. Lyra looked at him with fear. I cannot say everything, she whispered, but you must trust me. If others find out, I will be taken away, and he, she glanced at the android, will be destroyed. Joran rubbed his forehead. He had fixed things for smugglers, thieves, even pirates before. But this was dangerous on a whole new level. If someone truly powerful was searching for this girl, then by helping her, he was already in trouble. Outside, the winds howled across the desert. The workshop lights flickered as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, the android's chest flared again. A beam of light shot upward, projecting a star map in the air. Dozens of stars glittered, connected by glowing lines. In the center, one world shone brighter than all the others, marked with strange runes. Lyra gasped, covering her mouth. No, no, he should not show this, she cried. She reached for the android, but Joran caught her wrist gently. Wait, he said firmly. I need to see. The projection shifted, showing not only stars, but fleets of ships, armadas of metal giants drifting in silence. Then the image zoomed closer, an enormous throne room. A tall woman sat on a shining throne, wearing a crown of silver light. Her eyes glowed the same way Lyra's did. Her expression was strong, commanding, but her lips curved in the smallest smile. Joran froze. He did not know her name, but he knew power when he saw it. And this woman was no ordinary queen. This was someone who ruled galaxies. The image flickered and vanished. The workshop fell back into silence. Lyra was pale, trembling. She knows, Lyra whispered. She is watching us. Joran stepped back, his chest tight. She? You mean the Empress? Lyra didn't answer, but the fear in her eyes was enough. The mechanic felt a chill run through his body. He had just been pulled into something far beyond him, something he could not escape. If the Empress was watching, then every choice he made from now on mattered. Suddenly, the door to the workshop rattled. A loud bang echoed through the night. Joran spun around, his hand reaching for a wrench, the closest thing to a weapon he had. Lyra gasped and clutched the android. The door shook again, harder this time. Then a deep, metallic voice called from outside. "Open! By order of the Valen Guard." Joran cursed under his breath. Soldiers, here, now. How did they know? His eyes darted to Lyra, who looked frozen in fear. "They've found me," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. The banging grew louder, the door trembling under heavy fists. Joran's heart raced. He had only one choice: hide the girl, hide the android. Back room now. He hissed, grabbing Lyra's arm and dragging her toward the shadows. She hesitated. "What about you?" she asked in a small, trembling voice. Joran tightened his jaw. "I'll deal with them," he said. The banging became a crash, metal splintering as the guards forced their way in. Joran turned back, sweat running down his brow. In that moment, he realized something. His life had just changed forever. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was standing between a hunted child and the galaxy's soldiers. The door burst open with a blinding flash, and the night of silence ended. Joran's shop, once a place of broken scrap, was about to become a battlefield. The workshop shook as the soldiers forced their way inside. Metal scraped against metal. The door crashed down, and a cloud of dust rose into the air. Joran stood in the middle of the room, a wrench tight in his hand. He tried to look calm, but inside his chest, his heart pounded like a hammer. Through the haze, armored figures marched inside. Their armor was black, their helmets shaped like skulls, glowing red visors cutting through the shadows. Each carried a pulse rifle, humming with energy. They were not simple guards. They were Valen enforcers, the elite soldiers of the planet. Leader stepped forward, taller than the rest. His voice boomed through the helmet speaker, cold and sharp. "Human mechanic, step aside. We are looking for a fugitive, a small alien child, seen in this district." Joran kept his face straight. He thought quickly. If he showed fear, they would know. If he resisted, they would kill him. "What child?" Joran asked, pretending confusion. "This is a workshop, not a playground. I fix machines, not babysit them." The leader's visor glowed brighter as he scanned the room. His soldiers spread out, searching every corner. Joran's back stiffened. Behind the wall, in the back room, Lyra and the android were hidden under sheets of scrap metal. He prayed they stayed silent. One soldier kicked open a crate. Another tore apart shelves of wires and gears. The shop filled with the sound of smashing. Tearing, searching, Joran gripped his wrench tighter, forcing himself not to move. One wrong step, and it would be over. The leader stepped closer. He stopped only a foot away from Joran. "You lie," he said, voice heavy like stone. "We tracked energy signatures to this location. An old machine woke here tonight. A machine that does not belong on this planet." Joran's throat went dry. So they had already sensed the android's activation. He forced a casual laugh, though his hands shook. "You think I can wake something powerful? Look around. This place is full of junk, nothing more." The soldier stared at him for a long moment, then raised his hand. "Search the back," he ordered. Joran's eyes widened. No, if they went back there, they would find Lyra. Without thinking, he stepped forward, blocking the path. "There's nothing back there," he said firmly. "Only my private work. Delicate tools. You break it, you pay for it." The soldiers froze. Surprised at his boldness, the leader tilted his head slightly, studying Joran. For a human mechanic to stand against armed enforcers, it was almost laughable. "You are brave," the leader said coldly. Or foolish? Joran tightened his grip on the wrench. His voice came out low but steady. Maybe both. The air grew tense, heavy. The soldiers raised their rifles. One more second, and they would open fire, and then the android moved. From the back room, a deep mechanical hum echoed. The walls shook as the hidden power inside the android came alive again. Blue light leaked through the cracks, filling the workshop with a ghostly glow. The soldiers turned their heads in shock. What is that? One of them shouted. Joran's heart sank. So much for hiding. The sheets of scrap fell away, and the android rose slowly, its cracked body glowing with strange runes. Lyra stood beside it, her small frame trembling. Her star-like eyes were glowing. Brighter than ever, no. She cried, her voice echoing strangely, almost like two voices at once. You cannot take him. You cannot take me. The soldiers froze. For the first time, fear crept into their voices. That's her, one whispered. The air, the leader barked an order. Seize them. At once, the soldiers rushed forward, rifles blazing. With energy, Joran didn't think he acted. He swung his wrench at the nearest soldier, sparks flying as it hit armor. The man staggered, giving Joran a chance to grab Lyra's hand. Run! Joran shouted. Lyra clutched the android's arm, and together they stumbled toward the back door. Blaster fire lit the room, scorching walls, shattering metal. The workshop, the only home Joran had ever known, was turning into a war zone. The android raised one broken arm, and from its chest burst a shield of shimmering blue light. The energy blast slammed into it, sparking and hissing. The soldiers cursed, firing harder, but the shield held. For a moment, it was as if an invisible wall stood between the fugitives and death. Joran dragged Lyra toward the shadows. Where do we go? He asked through gritted teeth. Lyra looked up at him with tears in her eyes. Anywhere but here. They will not stop. They will never stop. Behind them, the leader aimed his weapon. This is your last chance. He roared. Give us the air, or all of you die. Joran looked down at Lyra. Her small hand gripped his tightly, her eyes pleading with him. In that instant, he knew. He couldn't abandon her. He couldn't hand her over. He would rather face death than betray her. Trust. Then you'll have to kill me too, Joran said, his voice like iron. The android's eyes blazed, brighter than before, and the entire workshop erupted in light. The light filled the workshop like a second sun. Walls cracked, tools flew through. The air and the armored soldiers were thrown off their feet. Their red visors flickered as their systems failed, sparks bursting from their armor. Joran covered his face with his arm, but the heat burned against his skin. When the brightness faded, silence followed, broken only by the faint hum of the android. The workshop was destroyed. Metal beams bent, the roof half collapsed, the air filled with smoke. Joran coughed, his chest aching, but when he looked around, he saw Lyra clutching the android, both alive, both glowing faintly in the ruins. The soldiers were not gone. They stirred, groaning, their armor cracked but not destroyed. They would rise again soon, and when they did, they would be angrier than before. Move! Joran shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. He didn't need to think anymore. There was no time. He pulled her and the android toward the back of the workshop, where a hidden exit led out into the dunes. The night air hit them, cold and sharp, above. The twin moons of Vela cast silver light across endless sand. The desert stretched far in every direction, lonely and endless. But to Joran, it was better than being trapped inside with soldiers. They stumbled forward, the android's heavy steps, leaving deep marks in the sand. Behind them, voices shouted. Metal clanged. The soldiers had risen, and they were following. They're coming, Lyra whispered, her voice shaking. Her glowing eyes darted back toward the ruined workshop. Joran squeezed her hand tighter. Then we don't stop, not until we're far enough away. The desert wind howled, lifting sand into their faces. Joran's boots sank with every step. His muscles screamed from exhaustion. But he pushed on. He was no hero, no soldier. But tonight he carried the life of a child and a machine that could change the galaxy. The android's chest glowed again, and a faint projection appeared before it. A map of the desert, glowing lines across the dunes. At the far edge, a symbol pulsed brightly. A hidden place, waiting. Lyra gasped softly. He remembers. He's guiding us. Joran looked at the map, then back at the endless desert. It was far, maybe too far, but it was their only chance. Behind them, red beams of light cut through the night. The soldiers had mounted speed bikes, their engines. Screaming across the sand, the desert echoed with the sound of pursuit. Run! Joran shouted. Though his legs were already weak, Lyra stumbled beside him, her small feet sinking into the dunes. The android slowed. Turning back, its arm lifted, releasing a burst of energy that exploded in the sand, blinding the soldiers. For a moment, but it couldn't hold them forever. The chase stretched on. The desert became a battlefield of fire and light. Energy blasts scorched the dunes. Sand erupted in waves. The air burned with heat. Joran felt each step like a knife in his lungs, but he would not stop. At last, they reached the edge of a canyon. The land dropped sharply into shadows. Jagged rocks stretched below like teeth waiting to swallow them. Joran cursed under his breath. There's no way across. Lyra looked at the glowing map again. Her eyes widened. There is, she whispered, pointing downward. The path is hidden below. Before Joran could question, the android moved forward. It raised its arm, and part of the canyon wall shimmered. An illusion faded, revealing a narrow path carved into the stone, leading into darkness. Joran blinked in shock. How long has this been here? Lyra didn't answer, but her trembling lips whispered, "A safe place." From long ago, blaster fire whizzed past their heads. The soldiers had caught up, their bikes screeching to a halt at the canyon edge. They raised their rifles, ready to fire. "Go!" Joran shouted, pushing Lyra ahead. The girl ran into the hidden path, the android following with heavy steps. Joran ran last, the narrow trail crumbling under his boots. Behind them, soldiers shouted, their lights cutting into the canyon. The path twisted downward into the dark. Every step echoed. Every stone seemed ready to give way. The air grew colder, heavier. At last, the trail opened into a vast cavern, glowing faintly with crystal light. The walls shimmered like stars trapped in stone. Strange machines, ancient and silent, lined the cavern, and in the center stood a massive gate, covered in the same glowing runes that marked the android's chest. Lyra gasped, her small hands clutching her chest. This is it," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This is where he was made. This is where I was meant to come." Joran stared at the gate. It was beautiful and terrifying, a relic from a time long forgotten. He didn't understand it, but he felt its power, and he knew this was not just a safe place. This was a key to something far greater. The android stepped forward, its hand glowing as it touched the gate. The cavern shook, the ground trembling under their feet. Above, the soldiers shouted, their voices echoing down the canyon. They were coming, and soon they would be inside too. Joran turned to Lyra. "What happens when the gate opens?" he asked. Lyra's glowing eyes met his, filled with fear and hope all at once. "I don't know," she admitted softly. "But it will change everything." The gate began to open, light pouring out like a rising sun, and Joran knew the real journey was only beginning. The mechanic woke before dawn, his mind restless, his eyes staring at the dull ceiling of his small workshop. He had repaired hundreds of machines in his life, But none had shaken his heart the way this android and this little alien girl had. He remembered the glow in her eyes, the way she smiled when the android moved again. It was not just a machine to her. It was a piece of family. But the night before, he had also noticed something strange. When he checked the android's inner systems, he had seen codes and technology far beyond anything the galaxy sold on open markets. These were not ordinary circuits. They carried encryption only the most powerful rulers would use. He wondered, who exactly is this girl? And why does her android carry secrets meant for emperors? The mechanic spent the morning pretending everything was normal. He worked on other ships, fixed small engines, and greeted customers, but his thoughts always returned to the android and to the girl who sat in the corner with her big curious eyes. She was too innocent to understand the danger that might follow. By midday, a shadow passed over the workshop. Not just any shadow, a massive ship descended silently, blocking the suns. Its engines purred like a beast ready to strike. The mechanic froze. Every instinct told him this was not a normal visitor. The girl ran to him, her tiny hand clutching his sleeve. "They've found us," she whispered. Her voice was trembling. "Who?" he asked, keeping his voice low. Before she could answer, the doors of the workshop burst open. Armored soldiers stepped inside, their suits glowing with imperial symbols. Their weapons hummed with energy. The mechanic's stomach sank. He knew. Now these were not random mercenaries. These were royal guards. The leader spoke with a cold, sharp tone. "Step away from the android, human." The mechanic put himself in front of the girl without thinking. Why? He demanded, "It's just an old machine." The soldiers exchanged glances. Then the leader raised his visor and smirked. "That old machine holds the codes of the Empress herself," the girl gasped, pulling at the mechanic's hand. Her eyes were wide with fear. "Please," she begged him softly, "don't let them take it." The mechanic's mind spun. The Empress, ruler of half the galaxy, the most powerful woman alive. If this was true, then why would her child be here, hiding in a dirty corner of the galaxy, with only a broken android for comfort? The leader stepped forward. "Move aside, or you will be erased." His weapon pointed directly at the mechanic's chest. The mechanic felt his breath slow, his hand steady. He looked at the girl, then at the android, then he looked back at the soldiers. "No," he said firmly. The room went silent. Even the hum of the weapons seemed to fade. The girl squeezed his arm, tears shining in her eyes. The leader's face twisted with anger. He raised his weapon higher, ready to fire. But at that exact moment, the android's eyes lit up with a deep blue glow, stronger and brighter than before. It stood on its own, its metallic frame humming with power the mechanic had never seen. The soldiers stepped back, fear flashing across their faces. The android spoke in a calm but powerful voice. "You are not authorized to touch the daughter of the Empress." The mechanic's heart stopped. Daughter of the Empress? He turned his head slowly, staring at the little girl. She avoided his eyes, clutching her hands together. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I didn't want you to know." The leader of the soldiers shouted, "Seize them both." The mechanic felt the world tilt. The girl was not just anyone. She was royalty. He had been protecting the heir to the galaxy's throne without even knowing it. And now every powerful force in the stars wanted her. The workshop filled with chaos. Blades of energy clashed with the android shield. The mechanic grabbed the girl and ducked behind the glowing machine. His heart pounded, but his spirit was clear. He could run and save himself, or he could stand and protect her. And as the android raised its arms to fight, the mechanic made his choice. The workshop shook as energy blasts slammed against its walls. Sparks flew from shattered panels. The android stood tall, its body glowing with hidden strength. It moved with speed the mechanic had never seen. Its arms blocked laser fire. Its fists sent armored soldiers crashing into walls. The mechanic pulled the little girl close. Keeping her behind him, his heart raced. But his mind stayed sharp. He was just a mechanic, no soldier, yet here he was, standing in the middle of a war he never asked for. The leader of the soldiers growled, "You cannot fight us forever. Hand over the child, and maybe you will live." Mechanic shouted back, "I won't hand her to killers." The android's voice rang out like thunder. "No one touches the Empress's heir." At that moment, the soldiers paused, confusion spreading across their faces. Whispers broke out. Among them, the heir? Could it be true? Their hesitation gave the android a chance to strike harder. It unleashed a wave of energy that threw half the squad out of the workshop. The leader screamed, "Hold your ground." But his voice was shaky now. The girl clutched the mechanic's arm, her eyes wet with tears. "I never wanted you to know who I was," she whispered. "I only wanted someone who saw me." "Not my mother's throne." The mechanic knelt in front of her. Even as chaos raged around them, "I don't care about thrones," he said. "I care about you. You're just a kid who needed help, and I promised I'd protect you." Her lips trembled, but she nodded. Then the air itself split open. A wave of golden light filled the workshop. The soldiers froze in fear, dropping to their knees. The android lowered its arms, and the mechanic shielded his eyes. From the light, a tall figure stepped forward. Her presence was overwhelming. She wore robes of woven stars. Her crown glimmered like living fire. Her eyes were sharp, wise, but filled with sorrow. The mechanic knew instantly. This was the Empress. The soldiers bowed low. "Your Majesty?" they whispered. Trembling, the Empress's gaze swept across the room until it landed on the girl. For a moment, her hard mask cracked, her lips parted, and her voice softened. "My daughter." The girl froze, her small hands shaking. She pressed closer to the mechanic, as if hiding. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't take me away from him." The Empress's eyes shifted to the mechanic. He expected anger, judgment, perhaps even death for daring to stand so close to her heir. Instead, her gaze was heavy with curiosity. "You," she said, her voice echoing with power, "a simple mechanic, risked your life against my own guards. Why?" The mechanic swallowed hard. His hands were trembling, but his voice was steady. "Because she needed me. Because you weren't here." The words struck like lightning. The soldiers gasped. The girl's breath caught. The Empress's face did not move, but her eyes flashed with pain. For a long silence, no one dared to speak. The air was thick with tension. The mechanic thought she might order his death on the spot. Instead, the Empress stepped closer. Her presence was suffocating, but her words carried weight. "You speak boldly for one so small. Perhaps that is why my daughter chose you." The girl peeked out from behind the mechanic, her eyes filled with hope. "Mama." "Don't hurt him." The Empress's lips pressed into a thin line. She raised her hand, and instantly the soldiers vanished in beams of golden light. Only she, the android, the girl, and the mechanic remained. "You have seen more than you should," the Empress said, "and for that, the galaxy would demand your silence." Her eyes burned into him. "But I am not the galaxy. I am her mother." The mechanic felt his breath catch. His fate was being weighed by the most powerful woman alive. "They..." Girl cried out, hugging him tightly. "He's my friend. He saved me. Please don't take him away." The Empress closed her eyes, for a moment looking less like a ruler and more like a tired mother. When she opened them, her voice was softer, but still strong. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "you were meant to fix more than broken machines." Mechanic blinked, unsure of her meaning. The Empress turned, her robes flowing like fire. "You will come with us," she said. "The stars are no longer safe, and if you care for my daughter, you will protect her with your life." The mechanic's chest tightened. He knew there was no turning back now. He had gone from fixing a broken android to standing in the shadow of an Empress. And as the light swallowed them, he realized his Quiet life was over. Ahead lay danger, secrets, and choices that could change the galaxy forever. The golden light faded, and the mechanic found himself standing in a vast throne room. Its walls shimmered with starlight. Its floor reflected the galaxies themselves. Every breath felt heavy, as though the weight of the universe pressed down on him. The Empress sat upon her throne, her daughter by her side. The android stood silent like a guardian statue, watching the mechanic carefully. Soldiers lined the walls, but none dared to move or speak. The mechanic's heart pounded. He had fixed ships, cleaned engines, and lived a quiet life. Now he stood before the ruler of half the galaxy. The Empress leaned forward, her eyes piercing into his soul. "Do you know what you have done, mechanic?" He swallowed. "I fixed her android," he said. "I protected her when no one else did." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, but her voice was sharp. "More than that, you touched the heart of an heir. You showed her what loyalty is. Not through blood, not through power, but through choice." The mechanic said nothing, afraid one wrong word would seal his fate. The Empress rose from her throne, her robes rippling like flames. "For years, I feared my daughter would grow cold like me, isolated by power. But she found you, a stranger, a mechanic from a forgotten world, and she chose you above all." The little girl's eyes welled with tears. "Mama, he's not like the others. He doesn't bow to crowns. He just cares." The throne room grew silent. The soldiers shifted uneasily. The mechanic felt a chill. The Empress spoke again, softer now. "That is why I cannot kill you." The mechanic blinked, shocked by the bluntness. "But," the Empress continued, her eyes narrowing, "you must understand. If you stay near her, you step into shadows of war. Enemies will hunt her, and now they will hunt you too. You will never know peace again." The mechanic's chest tightened. He looked at the girl clutching his sleeve, her eyes wide with fear. She didn't want him to leave. He remembered the night he first saw her in his workshop, alone, frightened, and holding a broken android. He had promised himself he wouldn't let her cry again. The Empress raised her hand, and a soldier stepped forward carrying a glowing object, a blade of pure energy, forged in royal fire. She held it out to the mechanic. "Take it," she said. "If you choose to stand by her, this will be your bond. You will not only fix broken machines, you will fight to keep her alive." The mechanic stared at the blade. His hands trembled. His whole life had been about avoiding trouble, avoiding risk. Yet here he was, being asked to protect the most important child in the galaxy. He thought of his small workshop, of quiet nights fixing engines, of the life he was about to give up. Then he looked at the girl's tear-filled eyes, and the choice became clear. Slowly, he reached out and gripped the blade. Its weight was heavy, but it felt right in his hands. "I'll protect her," he said firmly. "Not because of thrones, not because of crowns, because she's a child who deserves someone who won't leave." The Empress's eyes glistened with something rare respect. She lowered her head ever so slightly. "Then you are no longer just a mechanic," she said. "You are her shield," the soldiers murmured, stunned. No outsider had ever been given such honor. The girl gasped, smiling through her tears. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "I knew you wouldn't leave me." The Empress turned back to her throne, her voice echoing like thunder. "So be it. From this day, the mechanic is bound to the heir. Until death, he is her protector." The throne room erupted in light. Seals of power burned into the blade, into the mechanic's hand. He gasped as energy surged through him. The choice was sealed. The android stepped forward and bowed to him. "Protector," it said in a voice of iron. "I stand with you." The Empress looked out over her court, her voice carrying a warning that chilled the stars. "Let it be known, any who strike at my daughter will face not only my empire, but the human who stands at her side. The galaxy beyond the palace stirred with danger. Armies would rise, traitors would plot, shadows would move, but the mechanic knew one thing: he would not run. He was no longer just a man who fixed broken machines. He was part of something greater. And as the little girl held his hand, smiling with hope for the first time, he whispered to himself, "Let them come. I'll be ready."